Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the action comedy Central Intelligence, which was released this year. And this is a movie that, I gotta be honest, surprised me. It really surprised me. I'm not gonna say this is a great film. I definitely wouldn't say that's the case when it comes to this movie and the overall quality of it. But I would say I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it and how much I had fun with it, considering this is a movie that the trailers did nothing for me. I wasn't really looking forward to it, and it pleasantly surprised me, and I had a good time. So I would probably say this is an above average film to me. It's not good. It's not. I mean, I would say it's good, but it's not great. And yeah. So this is another example of a film that had The Rock in it that I didn't have high hopes for that surprised me. Pain and Gain was the other one, and now here we have another one in Central Intelligence. It's really interesting. Something about The Rock, I guess I'm not really sold on, and then he ends up winning me over in the end. I don't know. The main thing that really surprised me about this is not only the overall quality of it, but the fact that Kevin Hart was genuinely funny at times and was actually likable. I didn't hate him. I didn't want to strangle him. I usually want to strangle the guy, kick him through a field goal post, and here that's really not what happened. He was a likable character, and he actually worked well with The Rock, with Dwayne Johnson. This is a film directed by Rawson Marshall Thurber, who directed Dodgeball. He also directed kind of a not really the greatest comedy, Where the Millers. I would definitely say I like this more than Where the Millers. I gotta say his direction in this I thought was pretty good for what it was. He seemed to know how to handle the weight of being a director of an action comedy fairly well. Um, for a guy who's kind of out of his element, he doesn't really direct a lot of. He hasn't really directed action before. He did a pretty good job with it. I think the screenplay let him down more than his direction did. So I'd actually be curious to see him do another action comedy, actually with an R rating, which is what I thought this film could have. This film had some missed potential in that regard. I think it could have been even better if it was rated R. You get a little glimpse of that in the blooper reel that plays during the end credits, where The Rock's getting upset at Kevin Hart and swearing, and it's bleeped out. And I thought that was really funny. And I think if you had more of that sort of stuff, the film could have been really good because it would enable the film to have more action. It would enable the film to have the action sequences to have more impact, and the comedy would have more of this no holds barred sort of feel. Kevin Hart and The Rock wouldn't have to hold themselves back for a PG-13 rating. But yeah, I thought the direction by Thurber was fine. The screenplay by Ike Barinholtz, who I am a fan of from Mad TV. He was also in Neighbors and Neighbors 2. He helped write the screenplay along with David Stassen and Rawson Marshall Thurber, based on a story by Ike Barinholtz and David Stassen. I liked the story. I thought it had enough twists and turns in the plot. The whole is Dwayne The Rock Johnson's character is Weirdick. Is Robbie Weirdick? Is he the black? You know, the what is it? The black sheep? It's not the black sheep. I think it's the black badger. Is he the black badger? You know, this whole sort of thing back and forth. I thought the film did a good job with the back and forth sort of thing. Is he crazy? Is he isn't? Or is he crazy? Is he not? Not is he isn't. Using wrong wrong use of English there. Um, but yeah, I thought they did a good job with that. Plus the CIA thing, the sort of references to '80s movies like Roadhouse and 16 Candles was fun, and I thought the humor was there. Did a good job with the. I think one of the best things about this story is its whole message about bullying, and it was in a way it was like it was a way for people who were bullied, kids who were bullied, young adults who were bullied when they were young. It was kind of a fantasy, kind of way for us to live out our fantasies through The Rock, and where we get to grow up and be a badass super CIA agent, and get to kick some ass and even get revenge on the bullies that tormented us in high school, and get to actually punch them in the face. So there was that the film did a good job with that kind of thing, and also had a great message to it about being yourself, and it had a really big beating heart. And you know me, I'm kind of a softy when it comes to that kind of thing, and that goes a long way usually when it comes to movies, and this film is no exception. So it had a good heart to it, and that went a long way. The story kind of focuses on that, and the, the character of Robbie Weirdick is such a, you definitely feel for him, especially when he was younger. He was this overweight kid. He gets embarrassed in front of the whole school by these bullies who throw him butt naked into the gymnasium while everyone's in there doing like some senior pep rally. And, it really shows you, it showed a different side of the Rock that you didn't see before, this vulnerable side of the Rock that I really like seeing. And that's a testament to how well that works, is because of honestly how good the story and how good the screenplay is, because it has a lot there for the Rock to work with, and a lot for Kevin Hart to work with, where he's actually feels like a human being in this. He feels like not just a walking, talking, catchphrase joke machine. He feels like a human being in this movie, which was really nice to see. And that's one of the main reasons why I liked his character in this, of Calvin, the Golden Jet Joyner. So yeah, it features Kevin Hart in the cast, Dwayne Johnson, Amy Ryan, who I thought did a great job in this as well. Kevin Hart and The Rock have great chemistry with one another, something that Kevin Hart and Ice Cube had none of in the Ride Along films. I would rather see a sequel to this than any of the Ride Along movies. That's for sure. I'd rather see Ride Along. I'd rather see this, a sequel to Central Intelligence, than Ride Along 3, or definitely would have rather seen this than Ride Along 2. I wish I never saw Ride Along 2, and I wish I just watched this instead. Um, yeah, going back to the cast, Amy Ryan, like I said, she plays Agent Pamela Pam Harris. She's the CIA agent her and her team is trying to catch Dwayne Johnson because they think that he's the Black Badger, and I really liked her performance. She kind of stole the show. She had this kind of really, she didn't necessarily steal the show. I would probably say Jason Bateman stole the show, but she was good though. She was strong. She was solid. Good performance. Aaron Paul has a bit role from the guy from Breaking Bad as Phil Stanton, who was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's old partner, CIA partner, and like I was mentioning, Jason Bateman plays Trevor Olson, the grown-up bully who he and his buddies threw Robbie butt naked onto the gym floor in front of everyone in the pep rally in 1996. At the high school. And Jason Bateman steals the show in this as the biggest asshole ever, who he's Kevin Hart's character, Calvin Joyner, is asking him for a favor to get some routing numbers for Dwayne Johnson that'll help them hopefully try to track down the Black Badger. And the Black Badger is some kind of he's a villain pretty much. And the film goes throughout, a lot of it's trying to go back and forth, making you think that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson might be the Black Badger, and then you find out, of course, it's not technically him, it's somebody else. But so they're asking for a favor of Jason Bateman, and he does this whole spiel where he's saying, he's a born again Christian, and he's asking for Robbie's forgiveness, and this scene is just, Jason Bateman just nails this, where he's just like, and the Oscar goes to Trevor. What do you think? What did you think? Oh, look at your faces. Oh, look at your faces. You guys are fucking you're stupid. What did you think? That was the best senior prank ever. I still get emails about that. It was great. He played the best asshole, like one of the best assholes I've seen on film. It was so great. And he definitely got his comeuppance later, which is nice. The Rock punches him out at the senior reunion party. Definitely a crowd pleasing moment. But yeah, Jason Bateman was only in it for a little bit, but he definitely made an impact because he was such an asshole. It's an asshole to end all assholes here. Melissa McCarthy also has a little cameo as Darla, who was a girl that Robbie Weirdick had kind of had a relationship with or a crush on when he was a kid, and when he was a teenager in high school, and she was fine. It's kind of a cute little role for her. And what's funny is this film also has the "Up in Here, And it also has the DMX song that was featured in Ballbusters and in the Ghostbusters reboot. But it's definitely more. It definitely is a lot better suited here than it was in that movie. And Melissa McCarthy's in this too, and it's better. So finally, we saw a movie that Melissa McCarthy was in for 2016 that didn't suck because I didn't like The Boss and I didn't like Ghostbusters. But here, she's just in an uncredited cameo role, and I enjoyed it. Um, so yeah, so that's the cast. The music wasn't much of anything. That's one thing about this that really didn't do much for me. The editing was okay. Cinematography is okay. An action comedy normally doesn't have like amazing cinematography unless it's directed by Tony Scott and he's working with his cinematographer. But it's just it's there. And the basic gist of the plot is this: it starts out with a flashback where during 1996, this high school pep rally where Calvin the Jet Joyner, who is voted to be the most likely to succeed, and he's an athlete and he's a popular student. He's played by Kevin Hart. I think the film did a good job making him look really young, and everyone else looked pretty young too. It's kind of weird seeing the whole fat rock thing. It was really strange. It had that uncanny valley thing going on, which I don't know. They still haven't gotten the kinks worked out with that kind of CGI stuff, with them putting someone's face on a body double. But it's okay. All right. So that's when Trevor and his bullies, they grab Robbie and throw him butt naked into the pep rally. And this showed right away that Kevin Hart's character, he was kind of a nice guy, where everyone else is laughing in the gymnasium, but he isn't. He's just standing there looking like, man, that's just bullshit. That sucks. And he actually gives him his Letterman's jacket so Robbie can cover himself up. He thanks Calvin, and then of course he runs away in embarrassment. And then it flash forwards 20 years later. Calvin's married to Maggie, who that actress I thought did a pretty good job too. Danielle Nicolet, who plays his wife. And he's dissatisfied with his career because he's a tax accountant. It's not what he thought he was going to be because he was voted most likely to succeed. And the senior reunion is coming up, and he doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to be embarrassed because his life hasn't turned out the way that he would have wanted it to. She suggests that they see a therapist to salvage their marriage. Calvin receives a friend request from some guy named Bob Stone. He reveals that he is Robbie Weirdick and requests that they meet at a bar. He said they meet up, and Weirdick is now, The Rock, swollen up, all, looks like he's chiseled out of stone, and I really like The Rock's performance in this. It's one of my favorite roles from him. He plays this happy-go-lucky guy who's silly, a bit goofy, but he's got a heart of gold, and he's got a genuinely good sense of humor, and he's got a very vulnerable side to him that you didn't really see much of in any of the other Rock's roles. And this shows especially when he's confronted with Trevor again later on. And Kevin Hart's like, well, beat his ass, kick his ass. And this weird dick is going to kick your ass. And Trevor's like, come on, do it. Kick my ass. Can't do it, can you? That's what I thought. Once a fat kid, always a fat kid. And then the film actually did a good job showing this sort of how The Rock was feeling. The Rock is all swollen up and muscly, and he's still looking down, and then you see the reflection of what he sees, and he sees his reflection, and it's of him as a fat kid again. So he still sees himself as a fat kid, and that's something that I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to. A lot of people were bullied, a lot of people who were overweight. So it's something that a lot of people can deal with, who can relate to, not necessarily deal with, but relate to because, it's stuff that they've experienced themselves. Even after they've lost all that weight and they've gotten a better self-esteem, and there's still that problem that they deal with every now and then when people bring it up. Once a fat kid, always a fat kid. And so that was definitely a moment where I thought The Rock did a great job acting. It's because he showed emotion. He showed some other look on his face other than two other emotions, like smiling and I'm pissed off and I'm going to kick your ass. So it was nice to see that. He's a very endearing character too, and that's another thing. He was really likable, and that's another reason why I like this movie and enjoyed it is because of The Rock. It's one of the main reasons why. Because Kevin Hart was uneven. Like times, and sometimes he'd make me laugh. Other times his shtick didn't work. But as long as The Rock was there, I was entertained. And so then this starts this whole sort of thing where there's a fun little fisticuff at the bar where Bob kicks these guys' asses at the bar. Bob asks Calvin to review some accounting issue records. They go on this website and it's all kind of fishy, and it like analyzes things and automatically detects that there's somebody else on the server who shouldn't be, and it's kind of well, all right, there's something more to this. Then the CIA agents show up, led by Pamela Harris, played by Amy Ryan, who show up at Calvin's house. They search in search of Bob. Bob escapes. This is where this whole thing back and forth thing begins, where it's like the Pamela's trying to tell Kevin Hart that he's a dangerous criminal. He's the Black Badger. And then, of course, Bob comes back in and he's like, hey, I'm trying to find the Black Badger. So it's this whole sort of back and forth sort of thing. There's a fun little sequence in the office where Kevin Hart works. And I saw a little bit of this in the trailer where The Rock puts Kevin Hart in this little cart and they crash through the building and they fall out of the building, out of the skyscraper. I still really like that scene. I thought it was well shot. It was a fun little action sequence. Looked like a genuine stunt to me. It didn't look like they did it in front of a green screen. They did a good job hiding it. And so they escape. And then, that's a whole sort of back and forth. Oh, he's a Black Badger. He's not. There's a fun scene where Bob acts like he's a therapist at the therapist session between with Kevin Hart and his wife, yeah, and it's Calvin and his wife. It's Maggie. So that was a nice little bit of humor there, and then it just kind of goes on, and it's a pretty quick pace. It never really bored me. It was pretty entertaining. Then they find out this whole thing that The Rock, he's not the Black Badger of sort you think. And then there's this. They still kind of drag this out a little bit until the very end, until you realize, oh, of course, no, it's not him. And there's a really cool, nice reference to Roadhouse where The Rock rips out the bad guy's throat. He even says that earlier. He's like, "I'm gonna rip your throat out when this is over. I'm gonna rip your throat out like Dalton and like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse." I was like, now that's a Roadhouse reference that works. That's a Patrick Swayze reference that works because he actually does something. He actually rips his throat out like Dalton did in Roadhouse. Unlike in the Ghostbusters reboot, they just reference shit and there's no punchline. There's at least something there. There actually is a punchline because he actually rips the guy's throat out. So yeah, so there's some fun. So there's the action. That's one thing about the film. So eventually they find who the real Black Badger is. The Rock rips his throat out. There we go. They save the day. They go to the senior reunion. Calvin rigs the votes so Robbie can get voted senior king. And he actually strips naked for the first time since he was stripped naked and thrown into the gym when he was a kid, when he was a teenager. And it's this whole sort of scene where it's a good scene. He's naked, but he's actually has a great thing to say. It was a really good speech by The Rock. I don't necessarily remember it or have it off the top of my head, but it was a good speech. You definitely check the film out for the speech that The Rock has at the end of the film. I think it's pretty inspirational for people who are bullied, and it's a nice thing for people to see, to look up to. So yeah, it's a great message that this film has, and it stands out too because the hero is the kid who was bullied. That doesn't happen very often, and so yeah, and then they have this sort of one more sort of reference to 16 Candles at the end, because now Kevin Hart's character Calvin, he's ended up getting a promotion. Well, not really a promotion. He's gonna join the CIA and work there because The Rock thinks he would be a good agent there. And of course, that's in the party. That's where Bob, Robbie gets to knock out Trevor in a really crowd pleasing moment. and that's where he meets up with Melissa McCarthy. And Bob returns Calvin his varsity jacket from high school. That's the whole thing. That's the whole deal. He returns it back to him. They get in the car, drive off, and that's Central Intelligence, for the most part. Um, and this is kind of an end credit scene that you saw, and then they have some fun little blooper reel stuff at the end credits as well. It was a fun movie. The thing that prevents it from being really good and makes it just good for me, just above average, is the fact that the action when it is there, the sequence in the office I liked, and there's a bit of fisticuffs with the Rock that I enjoyed, but the gunplay later on was pretty just people taking pot shots, not much. They could have used a car chase or two. Um, so the action could have been better. And so that's definitely one thing that held it back. I also thought it could have had a little, it could have been funnier. So this is another thing. I had some definitely did get some laughs out of it. I had some fun with it, but it could have been funnier and it could have had more action. If it had those elements, then I think it could have been a new classic actually, because the story was interesting enough, the characters were likable enough, and that was a big thing, and that went a long way for my enjoyment of the movie. And yeah, so I don't really know what else to say about Central Intelligence, except if you're like me and you weren't really sold on the film, I would still recommend giving it a watch sometime. Especially if you're a fan of The Rock, because it's one of his better performances here, and he's a lot of fun in this. And he and Kevin Hart actually have good camaraderie with one another, and it's fast paced. It isn't boring, and yeah, it's no Jumpin' Jack Flash, because that's kind of what it reminded me of, the whole thing where some average Joe is getting involved in some CIA thing. But not very many movies are. Jumpin' Jack Flash, I think, is one of the best comedies of the '80s. So, but it's still a fun movie, and it's still entertaining, and I would recommend it. It was definitely a surprising movie. I enjoyed it. I don't know what to say about Central Intelligence. Instead of rated out of 5 stars, I would give the movie 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, above average movie. It was good, but it wasn't great. But hey, that's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be shit and piss, and it wasn't. It was surprisingly good. It was surprisingly decent, entertaining, above average uh, slice of action comedy. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.